Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Slowtwitch Podcast. As always, I'm joined by Ryan Heisler. And for this week's episode, we have a special guest. Ryan, do you want to introduce our guest?
See, I thought the script said you'd be introducing.
No, but we've talked about this. Sometimes we don't want to follow the script.
Oh, fine. So Simon Whitfield has decided to grace us with his presence here this week on episode 3 of the podcast. Congratulations on being our first guest. We had many people attempting to vie for this position, but we have deemed that you're going to be our first guest. So welcome.
I'm an old fan of Slowtwitch. So as soon as I heard you had a podcast and Eric and I have our banter going on text, it's fun to be here. It's a great place.
That's awesome.
It's great fun. Well, we've got a lot to discuss before we chat with Simon. So let's just go ahead and start our weekend recap of what is going on with the world of triathlon. Ryan, do you want to take it away and talk about some of the things that you want to discuss?
Yeah, I think one of the things we wanted to touch on really quickly was actually some of the gear that is coming out and stuff that we're really intrigued by on the website. And so I recently just did a long-term review of Engo's sunglasses. Super cool. You can check that out on the homepage, but I've really been surprised by just how, frankly, A, easy and B, durable those sunglasses are. So that display is super cool. And I know, Eric, you've been working on a little review yourself.
Yeah, real quick, did you ever figure out if you like them for running or not?
So I personally am an athlete that struggles when I see data all the time in front of me, particularly on the run. I have to go off of feel. And so for running, they're not totally for me, but for cycling, I think they're brilliant. And the one thing that would make them even better is if you could get a Varia, the Garmin radar alert in the glass. That would take it to the next level.
Yeah, that would eliminate a lot of the side mirrors that a lot of cyclists are choosing to go off of, just because you're facing forward, and your ability to be notified that someone's behind you and to pay attention would be pretty cool.
Yeah. And then I know
cycling is the big thing that I see those glasses personally for. I see it as a safety thing where you don't have to have your head completely down, all the time to look at the stuff that you're trying to focus on from a watt perspective or whatnot. And so just to be able to have that display all the time in your visual sight, to me is pretty cool.
And being able to just sort of adjust what you're seeing by just literally you just swipe in front of your eyes and it changes which data fields you have going. So you set it, in advance, and then however you want, whatever you might need, you just can get right through it. And so really, really cool setup. And I mean, just it works out of the box, which I was really kind of surprised by, because some other stuff has just not worked that well.
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive for the average consumer to get out and set up. I was surprised at that. At first, when we were asked to review it, I was like, oh man, I'm going to be the technical idiot that I am. I'm going to have a hard time putting these things together and getting them, downloaded and ready to go. It was pretty easy for me. And they're actually not that expensive either. Considering the fact that, there's a lot of sunglasses out there that are in the, $299, $300 range. For this to be a really good sunglass and be able to do all the things that it does, I was surprised at the price point.
Yep, definitely. So I know you're also kind of about to do something with Challenge tires, which is
that'll actually go out today. They released a new XP line for their getaway tire. Challenge is a handmade tire company. They've been around for a couple decades now. It's a family-owned business. They took over a factory in Taiwan in the late 90s from Pirelli, and tried to license a particular tire from Pirelli for a little while. It just didn't kind of work out. And so they ended up just creating what we know today as Challenge Tires and the brand. And they've been making handmade tires ever since. It's not an in-depth review because I'm not a technical tire person,
Right.
but it kind of goes in line with the average user that is, needing to buy a tire and wanting to have a good decision on where to buy it and how to buy it. So Ryan Risch will do a lot more technical stuff on the handmade aspect of what the difference between a handmade tire is and like a convention tire at like the big factories. So he's got a bunch of those tires and some other tires too. We're going to roll into some stuff with Cadix next week with some of their tires. I'm working on some Cadix wheel reviews as well, so that'll be pretty cool. And then Dan's got a couple of reviews that are coming up as well. So we're, kind of back to the basics with a lot of product reviews that are going on at Slowtwitch.
And the thing that I'm kind of excited, right, like in terms of just who we have writing for us and everything, is like we're really hyper focused on, what's this going to be like for the average person who might have some technical knowledge, but they're not overly geeky, like can't
Yeah, if the new consumer can't come to our website and understand what we're talking about when we do a review, we've failed in our review process. And it's the same thing if a really technical person can't come and find some technical information within that review as well that educates them, we have also failed. And so we've given the challenge to myself and you and Dan and everybody to kind of rethink how we are doing reviews so that the brand new person in the sport can learn something, and the person that's been around for 20 years and writes in our forum 5 times a day can also feel like they got something out of the review that they just read.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing, just looking at this past weekend, we had another World Triathlon Championship Series race. Phenomenal day for Great Britain with Alex Yee, Georgia Taylor Brown winding up winning. Women's side of stuff really kind of intriguing as you see kind of the U.S. side really starting to develop with its selection process and the criteria behind what you might see going forward into the Paris test event and the 2024 selection.
All right.
And I mean, the other thing that's kind of intriguing out there, right, is, Gwen Jorgensen, as she continues her comeback, rode as an alternate to the last race, didn't wind up actually being able to compete, and then lapped out on this week's race. And so question, even in our forum, like lots of people talking, is she going to be in a position to actually take one of the slots?
How does she do that? Because right now, from a form perspective, like there's no way. I mean, she got lapped out.
So if you look at the U.S. Olympic Committee's selection process, so there's 2 ways to qualify. So you have the auto qualification standard, right? So the first thing that has to happen is Gwen has to be one of the top 140 athletes in the individual rankings overall.
Is she doing that?
Then, she's on the borderline. And then from there, you have the auto qualification, which comes from the test event, and then 2 other races if in the event that no one actually fills out the squad at that point. And then from there, it goes to discretion. And the criteria is written in such a way that it pretty much gives the selection committee, as long as someone's in the top 140, they can pick whoever the heck they want. Because the auto qualifying slots they want people who can medal in the individual event. And then the committee's given wide discretion of, do we want to go for somebody who might medal individually, someone who might medal for mixed team relay? Do we want to go for a domestique who can set the pace in the swim, the bike, be a pacer on the run, whatever, you might need out of that squad. And so like it's just going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out, particularly as USAT kind of evolves over time. Because we've seen a lot of change over the last 6 to 8 months, both in their regular leadership, right, with Rocky resigning and now Victoria Bloomfield as CEO, but also on the coaching and high performance side, like there's been a lot of turnover and things are interesting there.
Yeah. I mean, and we're talking about a phenomenal athlete. I mean, Gwen Jorgensen is a legend when it comes to that type of racing. I mean, and so I wonder, you know, it would be curious, Gwen, if you're listening to this, or Patrick or whoever, we'd love to talk to you about this eventually at some point if you're comfortable with it, because, you know, what is your plan going into this? Is this where I would be very interesting to hear if this was where she thought she was going to be at this point, if she's got a game plan where she's just about to start coming into form, or if this is it. You know, I don't really know what to. I remember her coming back into it, and I had mixed emotions where I was just like, geez, man, like, do you risk your legacy of what you had by, you know, coming back into, because these females are so fast right now. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, when you talk about the Norwegians where, you know, they were dominating, you know, the short course, they went to long course, they came back, they're having a really hard time. You know, Gwen dominated short course, and then she went over and she tried to do marathon running. And is she able to come back and dominate again? Love to get Simon's input on this at some point.
Right. The other thing that I find really intriguing about that is that the U.S. women are so deep right now, right?
Oh,
like
that's what I mean. They're fast. Like, they're quick. Talented athletes that have been focused on this for, you know, 5 or 6 years straight, right? Like, ever since, I mean, you had athletes that are coming around this Olympic cycle that kind of, in my opinion, got shafted the last Olympic cycle that should have been an Olympic squad that weren't. I mean, Taylor Spivey she is quick and she's ready to go.
Hey, Eric, I'm jumping in here.
All right.
I'm jumping in with opinions.
Off the top rope.
Off the top rope. I think when you love doing something as much as she obviously loves it, and when you just love being engaged in it and seeing what you can get out of it, there is no question about whether or not you do it. And, you know, how that plays out, we'll see. But I get it. I get the idea that you just want to know. And I really admire, you know, it took a lot of courage to do that. There, like, as you alluded to, from an ego perspective, there's a lot to lose. It feels like there's a lot to lose, but for her, I'm sure it isn't. It's just the love of doing it and seeing what you can do. And the whole journey of that's going to be up and down. You know, it was never going to be a straight line to success. The level, just, you know, partly because the level's gone up, but also just that's the nature of competing and all the different variables that are there. Yeah, I really admired. I talked to Pat, and I love that they just threw their hat in the ring, and it will unfold. You know, the whole politics piece, I don't care about. That will unfold. If she puts herself in a position where she shows the ability to perform on the day, and somebody thinks that that's the ticket to the best chance to win a medal, and whether it's the individual or the mixed team relay, so be it. That will unfold as May. It's easy to put together pieces where you think like, oh, this and that, you know, the politics of this and that. So what? The other athletes, if they want to qualify, they'll have to put together better results. They'll have to go to get that automatic qualifier. Then there's no disputing it. I always think it's funny when people get in this position where they're stuck with discretion and they don't like the discretion. You know how you avoid discretion? You go get automatically qualified, and then you don't have to be part of that conversation. So we'll see. I don't know. I really admire her for going for it, though.
And I mean, I think, you know, we go back to the last cycle, right? I think it was Katie Zaferis who wound up with the discretionary slot, which wound up specifically being for mixed team relay. And of course, the U.S. medaled there. And so like you bring up like a great point, like don't like discretion, like don't leave it up to discretion. You have to go get it, or you have to be so good that you're making that discretion judgment look really, really, really bad.
Yeah, that's it. Put your fate in your own hands. I don't know. I liked when the criteria came out for Olympics. I always thought it was telling who asked the most questions about the easiest way to get in. I always thought that was like an indication when you're sitting in a room and someone was like, so technically, if I were to technically go, and I was thinking, that seems like a awfully convoluted way to get into this. Can I just get what's the first criteria? Okay, if you win, am I in? Yes. Okay, good. Let's go after that. And I understand that that's not, I don't know. It's just a mindset thing that I think she possesses. Well, we know she possesses. She's got the proof is in the pudding. So yeah, we'll see how that unfolds. It sure adds some intrigue to the whole, Olympic trials and the actual race. Again, yeah, you unleash that run of hers on anybody, and it's unquestioned. There she is. Her pedigree's there. So we'll see.
Yeah, she's obviously very committed. Simon, you bring a really good point that Ryan and I, obviously, it's not that we don't have, but we don't truly understand like you do, because you've been there. We are not professional athletes, nor have we ever, nor will we ever be professional athletes at that level. And for you to be able to understand that, you bring a really good point to that. And, clearly that is something that is probably very, accurate with her and in what she's doing. I mean, just for her to travel all the way to, was it Japan? Where was that race? Where she, I mean, that I read that and I'm like, man, that's expensive. Like that's an expensive gamble. Not only from like a time perspective, but also like from a financial perspective, like to be able to go there just in hopes that she could potentially race. So obviously she's very dedicated. And, the one thing I will say about Gwen that I've always admired about her is she doesn't care about what other people think. She does what Gwen does, and her and Pat are just, they're on their own, path, and they're consistent with that, which means they obviously believe that, truthfully, to keep going, because, she's never somebody that, backs down, to any of the naysayers or the trolls out there. She's just, this is what I'm doing and I'm going to go do it. And, she presses forward regardless of the outcome. So, we'll see what
The other thing that's playing there is that once you're out of that, I mean, I find this 10 years out, you never can get back in. Once you hit, and it is the end. You look at even Tom Brady, it was that was the case. He really should have ended it when he ended it. It's such a joy to be able to do that, and so I understand this desire to keep going, and consequences be damned. To find out.
Simon, it kind of dovetails a little bit with a question that's been sitting in the back of my head, right? Like, but you've had that perspective of like, this is the end, right? Like, and what was that moment or something for you where it was like, I have to hit the button now? Like, and what was the process for you, like being able to like handle that, right? Because that's probably like, there's no way, like you get blown out of the water a little bit with a few races, and it's like, can I get back there? Like, is this it? Like, how do you process that as an athlete?
It's a slow twitcher that Jordan Rapp. I went down to Thousand Oaks and stayed with Jordan and Jill in 2013. And I saw the level of commitment that he still had, and the details he was putting in, and the hours he was putting in. And I just was faced with this, like, oh, I don't do this anymore at this level. I have too much respect for the commitment and sacrifice it takes. And when I sat down, it was April of 2013. I was thinking about still racing, and I was just confronted with this. Oh wow, this is not my priority anymore. My priority is being home with family and different things. There's the new chapters of life, and so it really was a commitment to just honoring the sacrifice that it takes and not fooling myself or disrespecting that commitment. And so, yeah, I remember being in Thousand Oaks and seeing Jordan do what he was doing, and he was super focused, and I was just like, oh, this is not my world anymore. And I never, after 2012 and then that stint there, I never raced again. And, and that had a whole series of its own consequences. I think it took me almost 10 years to do hard things again. When I say hard things, there's a difference between a workout where you have intervals that you're counting down and you're thinking, I can't even, I'm at number 7 and I'm doing 10 and I can't even fathom doing this next one, let alone the next 3. That's hard. And playing soccer, paddling, all the things that I've been doing since I retired from sport, they're not hard, they're fun. They get difficult, but there's a big distinction there. There's not the only way I could make paddling hard was go out in inclement weather. So I had to I'm going to get blown out to sea if I don't, if this is hard. But that's difficult. It's not mentally hard. It's actually quite the opposite. That was quite invigorating. And it was last summer that I did a bit of the cold plunge thing just because, everybody seems to need to Instagram about it. And so I got in on that. And I know what I think the thing was I noticed was oh, wow, I'm doing hard things again. This is hard. It's hard to be dry and warm and then go get cold and wet. That's a hard thing, and it was the first time in 10 years, literally the first time in 10 years I've done it kind of something that was a choice between, the ease of not doing it and the difficulty of doing it. And so, all the way back to the original question, that's that once that thing turns off where you're no longer willing to do hard things or you don't want, whatever, you're making different life choices, then it's over. But all the way back to Gwen, she's choosing because she still loves doing hard things. This is a very hard thing, and I just have a lot of admiration for that.
Simon, that was when you and I kind of first started to be introduced to each other. Was when I remember when you went to Jordan's house to do those training and stuff, and I remember asking him how's Simon doing? And he's just his neck hurts a lot.
Yeah,
because you were thinking about going to long course racing, doing the half Ironmans and stuff, and so you were, we kind of talked about this last week on our episode where you take a Flora Duffy who's been in the Olympic mode in the Xterra world, and you put her on a time trial bike, and it's just different for her, right? She's been having all sorts of back issues and stuff because it's such a different, experience from what they're used to. And, and so it's interesting that was kind of a moment in time for you where you were like, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore or if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah, it's the all-consuming piece to it. It really is. I mean, it's so to try and compete at that level and honor the gift. It's got to be get obsessed, stay obsessed. The world according to T.S. Garp, And if you don't have that, then don't dishonor don't disrespect the sacrifice other people make. I always had a hard time with that when athletes would come to the training center and they would say, I'm doing this. I'm going to go to the Olympics. I'm also going to school, and I'm going to go to my best friend's wedding in the middle of the summer, and I'm going to go on a trip with my friends, for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute here. There's those of us who are putting all and everything into this, and you think you must be talented. You must be very, very talented to think that you can come along and put in less than 100%. So I never wanted to disrespect the gift like that. And then, that's funny. You referenced the neck injury. That piece right there is the other funny. There's some irony in that because I did that. I hurt myself in Switzerland trying to go up the steepest climb, and our training squad was trying to get up this very, very steep road. And I just willed myself to the top of it, and my neck was never the same. And I always thought that's kind of funny. Like my ego needed to be the one that made it up to the top. And years later, I still have a kink in my neck that affects me in a way that the idea of doing, like, once I got in that time trial position, I was like, oh, that's not going to happen. That is just absolutely not going to happen. Where, and you know what? Maybe that could have done all the physio and all the stuff. And again, it was a matter of like, oh man, am I really? Is this my life again? Can't go to the park with the kids because dad's doing iron neck exercises. That's just wasn't for me anymore. So there you go.
Yeah. Now fast forward
straight road.
10 years from then, but you're kind of back in the sport a little bit, but you've got all sorts of really cool roles that you're doing. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about some of those roles? You just got brought on by the feed, I believe, to kind of manage the professional athletes. Like, what are you doing?
I hadn't done much. I had barely I'd stay in touch with the sport by following it, but I wasn't actually involved in any way. I don't know. I spent from age 12 till 37 thinking about swim, bike, run, nutrition, sleep every day, all day. And so for, I don't know, 9.5 years, I spent kind of playing soccer, paddling, catching up, spending time with my family, and staying in touch with the sport peripherally. And then in November, through a venture capital fund that I did some work with here in Canada, they are involved with the feed. I got asked just some questions around how would you approach triathlon if you were the feed, and I wrote up a bit of I know you're doing this, but here's all the things I would do. Here's the people I would connect with. Wynn, top of the list. And they said, well, great, neat ideas, go for it. You want to see how you do with that? And it was, first and foremost, it was just, I really enjoyed being part of a team. For the 9 years before that, I sat across the desk for myself. I'd be at my business was sitting on one side of the desk and then saying something, and then I run to the other side of the desk and I'd be like, oh, that's a great idea, Simon. Good job. Sounds terrific. And so to be part of a team and have accountability and to meet everybody in person, and I took till March, 6 months in, a little less than 6 months in, to meet everybody in person, to be down in Bloomfield, meet the crew, and it's a great group of great people. That's the part I actually enjoy the most. And then working with the athletes has been all sorts of everything. It's been, I've been to be reconnected, to see glimpses into the life I used to lead, to really honor again the high performance aspect of it, where you've got athletes that are looking after every single detail. I've really enjoyed being part of that. It's funny, I knew Ben Canute a little bit when I raced, and I followed, obviously, and then to sign him to the team, and then to spend some time with Ben and to meet his family and to see the level of commitment a guy like Ben puts into the day-to-day. It really reminds me of all the great things about sport, about camaraderie, about dedication. Chelsea's the same. To get to know Chelsea, I watched her win Hawaii. I'm thinking this is great for our sport. I thought I knew all the trivia for Ironman. To find out that she was the first mom to win blew me away. I would have failed that questionnaire. And then to get to know her and to just the journey she's been on, to go from relative anonymity to being in the New York Times. I've had a little glimpse of that life too. And she's just an incredible ambassador for our sport, let alone for the feed. I'm really enjoying it. It's I get to some contact with Lionel. I don't know Lionel particularly well, but he's on our team, and so to see a little bit insight into his world, and this incredible character that's made such a huge impact on our sport, not only as a racer but as a media presence. I don't know what you want to call it. This YouTube phenomenon, to be as articulate as he is and honest as he is, and and to see him go through the ups and downs, and then to see a little bit of the other side of it from the back, that's been fascinating. So yeah, I really enjoy it. It's a great job. It's great people,
Yeah.
great job.
Now you handpicked all these athletes, correct?
To an extent, I guess, yeah. I had a different, whether it's the Aaron Royals, who I've known for a long time and just admire as a person, and then also to know that he's at the front of every race and he's always a presence in those races. So really understanding how the sport unfolds. Same with Ben, such a strong swimmer. Obviously with Ashley and Josh, just just the consummate professionals, and to see the level that Ashley took it to last year with the PTO, and having seen her come up through the ranks and then really fulfilling the potential she had. And then, yeah, just the list of athletes it's people I really admired first and foremost as people. And then, let's figure out what happens here from all the business side of sport, yada, yada, yada. But first and foremost, it was reconnecting and signing athletes that I thought were great people that could do great things well beyond the base range.
It really is an impressive squad. I would have to say it's probably one of the most well thought out marketing attempts that I've seen from a company in a long time.
Cool.
You've got all of your bases covered. You've got really big microphones. You've got small, really macro community influencers that are involved with it. Usually you just see these companies that come up and they're like, we just want the biggest people and we want like 2 of them. Right. And that's what we're going to do. But you've put together a real big range of athletes, and they've all got really good presences within the sport as a whole, but also they're just masters of their little macro communities that they've developed. And so it was fun to talk to you while you were doing it. And, obviously we had a lot of conversations about how to go about some of the athletes that you were signing and whatnot. But to see it come full circle and be able to see a lot of their like launch videos and things has been really cool, to kind of see. So congratulations on that. The feed's lucky to have you, man. Yeah.
There you go. I enjoy it. It's a great group of great people, and we'll see where it all goes from there.
So
you
go
used
ahead,
an
Ryan.
interesting phrase like a second ago, like where you said consummate professional, right? And like for a lot of people, like including on our forum, like it gets brought up, like is being a quote unquote professional triathlete too easy? Is it like, is the definition too broad or anything else? So when you say consummate professional, like what does that mean to you? Because like you've been at kind of the pinnacle of our sport, and you've talked about like your level of dedication and sort of like some of the people coming through training centers and stuff. So I'm interested to kind of hone in on that for a second.
What's the Maori expression? I won't do it justice, but it comes down to what's the most important thing. It's the people, the people, the people.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. At the end of the day, all of this is about human relations. We're selling sports food. we're talking about sports food on a forum, at the end of the day, it's all about human relations. And so, and in this case, it's the aspirational side of, professional sport exists. I love, like Lionel's video where he's talking about, what sport means to him. Can you picture, he puts that out, it's 8 minutes long. And then half a day later, I'm sitting at the table with the mother of my children, her partner, my 2 daughters, and we're listening. We've got the little phone out and we're listening to Lionel talk about sport. And my kids are going like, and they've been around sport their whole existence. And yet this super powerful message about what is sport really about. And so, yeah, the people. So back to consummate professionals, like starts and finishes with that. Frankly, I didn't always do that. I felt like I was under a lot of pressure. I felt like I didn't have I was kind of breaking new ground because there wasn't precedent for the sport in Canada I don't know. I didn't have the tools to navigate the 15 minutes of fame that came with it. It was just new ground. So I burnt some bridges along the way that I look back on and go, oh wow, if I would only do some things differently. You don't get to do that. So either you live and learn and don't do that again, or you continue to make those mistakes and you live a pretty lonely existence. So all again, the consummate professional starts and finishes with how you treat people. Do you honor that, and then how you apply yourself? Is it all in? Are you a are you saying you're professional, but really you're doing a whole bunch of other things? Are you not really honoring the fact that if you were going to compete at that high level, that if you're going to work towards competing at the highest level, are you truly doing all of the things that it takes to compete at the highest level? And so once the people piece is checked off, I want to know that they're fully and utterly committed to this. This isn't just a fun side gig. This is the full all in. There's no other way to do it.
Do you talk to us a little bit about your daily grind now, Simon? Because you were in, we talked about this earlier, how, for the majority of your life, you ate and breathed and slept triathlon. And then you took a 10-year period kind of away from it. And you went back to, what I would classify as your roots, with your family and your kids. And you got kind of reacquainted with, them and you, outside of sport. And now you're kind of back in it a little bit, where I'm sure you're probably pretty excited to, get back into the swim, bike, run stuff. But at the same time, you've got this balance of what's really important and the things that you've learned over the years. So now I'm sure you've got this daily grind of what you do. Kind of walk through that for our listeners of what is a day like for Simon Whitfield these days? How do you take care of yourself physically? How do you take care of yourself emotionally? How do you pass on that experience to these athletes that you're working with?
I mean,
besides banter with me on over text message about dumb shit.
Text messages. But yeah, true. Look, I go through the same struggle everybody goes through, and I find it quite interesting that at one point in my life, I never broke the 10-second rule once in my whole coming up. When the 10-second rule was, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, you don't want to get out of bed. If you start counting to 10, you never make it to 10 before you're out of bed. That was my golden rule. I never broke that. I walked in the snow. I did all those things, all the hilarious cliche things to get to 5:15 a.m. swimming, at whether it was in Kingston, Ontario, or at boarding school. Fast forward 30 odd years, and I lay in bed and we all know now the morning routines, how important this is. We've all like, what would Huberman do? We've all got that like silly like little cliche going in our head now. And yet I don't. There are many days where I know that if I get up, I have a large glass of water, I go outside, I walk around the block, I get low angle sunlight in my eyes, I get a certain amount of activity, blah, 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 blah. And yet I don't. So I go through that same fluctuation as everybody else does. And I don't know if is it because I don't have a hard set goal. I don't have something that I'm working and aspiring to. Probably. It's probably very simple like that. But I also don't want a hard set goal. Right now, I'm playing tennis at 1 o'clock today. I'm going to play pickup soccer with the boys tonight at 7. I mix activity into my day. And then otherwise, I have a whole work list here that I just keep plugging away through. And I have my own system for it. I like splice plans. So I like chop my day up into little splices and all the bloody techniques out there, because just like everybody else, I struggle with getting shit done. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I try and have aspirational adventures, excursions. We're going for our big paddling trip this year where we free dive and fish all day and just float along. And I admit that I was talking to Jackson Laundry recently, and I was like, why you're doing all this training now? So you can have old man strength later. I like
Yes.
having old man strength. It's so fun. I didn't realize that when I was racing and training. I thought I was doing it for now, and at the time for results and podiums. No, I tell you what, the best part is having old man strength now, because I can not paddle for 6 months, and then I can get in very inclement weather, and I can old man strength my way home, and that's super fun. And I get a little moment of ego, I just get a little snippet. And then coincidentally, is it irony? I struggled as a swimmer all the way through. I made my way to eventually being front pack swimmer, and now I can't run. Evelyn and I went to the track for getting ready for one of her events, and I can't run 400 meters as fast as I used to run 10K. Like one lap. I cannot run for the life of me one lap. And I stood there at the end. I was going, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, I used to run that for 10K. I get on the bike and I get 2.5 hours in, my neck's sore, and I'm like, I'm just blown to pieces. But I can swim like a motherfucker now. I bought a DeBoer. I bought a DeBoer suit, the ocean suit. I got the full. I sent Alex the thing. I said, I don't want anything. I just want a suit. I'm going to buy the suit. I want the hoodie, the whole thermo hoodie. I'm that guy. I just bought the Aquasphere, whatever, those big, huge face goggles.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sam Long's ad worked on me.
Yes.
Sam Long got that big ad with it. And I was like, yeah. So advertising works. Good job, Sam Long. And so, yeah, now I'm that guy. I'm out in the ocean, off the point. The waves are going crazy, and I had my little moment of performing on stage, of seeing people on shore going like, what the actual fuck is that guy doing? And I'm like, I'm out there with paddles on and just loving my life. So, yeah, that's what I do now. I don't know, long-winded answer to a short question, but that's what I do now.
Well, no, I mean, like, it's completely relatable where it's like you're adapting sport to your life rather than like your life having to adapt around sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's the struggle that every age grouper in the world has to deal with on a daily basis, right? Like, I know for myself, like, I'll never be in the same shape that I was 10 years ago, right? Because like life is just totally different now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But like being able to do something on dad strength and dad watts is like just an A+ experience, because totally. It's like, yes, yeah. I get that little taste of what it used to be like, right? And it's so more funny. Than enough.
I played back-to-back soccer games in the summer, and the guys on my team were just like, I can't believe you just did that. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? I used to ride I used to swim 7K. Sunday mornings we would swim 7, we would ride 2 hours, and we would run whatever it was, like massive days. It was half of what Blumenfeld does every day, but it was a big day for me back then. And they're like, you played? I'm like, you have to sub here and walk around the field. This is not endurance. I got old man strength now. So, yes. Yeah, I like that. Dad watts. Yeah, got some dad watts for sure.
So one thing I wanted to ask you before we leave and you go play your tennis match, how you've been back in the relationship with these athletes, right? And so you're working for basically an online nutrition company, The Feed, and they're ordering all this stuff, and you've got to be talking to them about their training programs and whatnot. How big of a difference has it been since you were, at your peak and the training loads that you were doing compared to the training loads that these athletes are doing today?
I have no idea, honestly. I have no idea. I didn't train. I trained consistently. Consistency was the key. Joel, consistency is everything. So I watched a lot of
chop wood, carry water, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's it. I like that. So I mean, that's the everyday now. Is like you go do the fundamentals first, go do the basics first. But Yeah, I saw a lot of athletes come through where they do these absolutely epic sessions. They might even do epic weeks. They might even do an epic 6 months, and then they were injured, and then they were down, and then they started the cycle again. And I had no non-trauma. I crashed a couple times, so I broke some bones, but I didn't miss any training in 16 years from overuse or whatever. So that consistency trumps all. Um, that was the formula. So I don't know. I don't pay attention a lot now to what they do. I don't know. I mean, I suppose I believe people when they talk about what they do for trading. I mostly, obviously, what the Norwegians have done and the level that they've taken it to. Again, then you get a guy like Hayden Wild, who I'm just such a massive fan of, or Alex Yee, that just
Do you think what
it's
the
great. Georgia
Norwegians are
Taylor Brown,
doing?
just a great amazing.
Do you think what the Norwegians are doing is sustainable? Because
Uh,
because
no,
they're doing
I was
crazy
about to say,
stuff.
I said no, but yeah, I say no, but then Olaf and they're paying so much attention to the details and quantifying it that they'll see the cliff coming before, in a way that we had no ability to see.
Yeah.
They're just so far ahead in terms of how they're quantifying what they're doing. So I assume they'll see it coming before we just ran off cliffs because we were running blind.
Yeah.
They're ahead of the ticker. They're like, they know what's going on. So I
Do you think that approach is sustainable for other athletes without the same sort of backing that the Norwegians have?
No, I mean, no, but by definition, that's funny. Like, give it 110%. Well, you're paying back that 10 by definition. You're paying back that 10%. So
Mm.
again, I just like seeing make your average days better. That's like a pretty basic tenet to the whole thing. So yeah, this is you can do an entire podcast on quantified self. This like aura ring whoop band existence that we're in now, where everything is quantified, and I've really enjoyed not doing so much of that. I had an Aura ring for a little while. It's somewhere around here. I have an old Garmin over here that I like to use every once in a while. But I have it. Yeah, this quantified self thing is going to have interesting consequences as we move. There's a big conversation to be had around what the unintended consequences of quantified self are. That's going to be its whole. We may look back on this as smoking. So
Well, I mean, I was going to
we'll
say,
see.
like, I don't need an Aura ring to tell me when I wake up in the morning that I feel like shit and maybe I should take a rest day. Like,
Yeah, yeah. There's that. There's exactly that.
But
There's like
Ryan,
how long.
sometimes you need an article to tell you that you should take a rest.
Well, there's that, but there's also the like, how long till insurance companies come along and tell you like your premium just went up because we've been accessing your data this whole time. So like
That's a good point.
I'm not 1984ing you. That's like that is true.
Yeah.
That is a truism that is here's a free ring. Here, I'll pay you to wear this ring, but oh, by the way, you know, you can't get on that flight because your Aura ring tells us that you whatever. Like
I
there's
saw
there's a
this.
whole
Yeah, I saw
thing
this
going
meme
on.
the other day, and it was this picture of this just like jacked up liver, and it said, this is a picture of your liver when you tell your doctor you only drink like 1 to 2 times a week, and it was pretty funny because you go into those settings and you're just like, oh yeah, like I do way more bad stuff than I give myself credit for, and I'm way overworked, and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that's exactly.
uh, well, Simon's got to go here pretty soon. You've got another call, or you've got a tennis game.
Yeah, no, no, I've got, what I'm doing next is I'm talking to the pickleball people
Yes,
because
yes.
yes, I'm a pickleballer and my mom converted our whole family. And so I'm playing tennis today because the person I'm playing can actually play tennis because tennis is a terrible game if one of you can't play very well, it's just a lot of walking around chasing balls. And pickleball solves all that. But yeah, you may see us venturing into the pickleball world soon here. So I'm gonna have a call with the Dink. Just, true story. I didn't make that up. That's the hub of all things pickleball. So
The Dink.
I'm learning. It's a part of the job I really enjoy. Actually, is exploring these. We got to meet Justin Barcia from the motorsport motocross guy.
Yeah.
And gosh, his whole world is so fascinating, and to hear just to see a guy just apply himself the way Justin is, and it's just this endless thirst for knowledge and thirst for how can I do better. It's that's been a fun part of the job. So I'm off to learn, what it is in the pickleball world that makes people tick, and where it is that we might fit into that. So that's next for me. And then, at some point today, I'm going to go play tennis and muck around, pretend I can hit a ball. I can't
Simon,
my life. So
when's the next time you and I are going to hang out? We had some plans for the summer.
I want to ride bikes.
I got busy. I got
busy. I got a Trek Top Fuel that I want to go.
That's right. So, that's right.
New bike day yesterday. That was yesterday. I made it up the big climb. So look, go mountain.
How excited are you? Like that's the first. That's like the first mountain bike you've gotten in what, like 10 years? Like when was the last time you got a
way back in the day?
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I was thinking actually 10 years ago I bought a Trek Domain. Was it Domain? Whatever that one was with the elastomer in it.
Yeah.
It was the first bike I had bought in 20 years. And I bought one. I walked in, I was like, I got to try that bike. That was awesome. And then I don't know, I sold it maybe a year later. And this time, I'm riding a Trek Top Fuel. I walked into the Trek Pro City store here in Victoria, and Bill said, that's the bike you should get. That sounds good. And so Penny Flake, I think it's called. It's like copper. You got to get copper.
Yeah.
And I was going to do Leadville, but I chickened out because I don't want to do the altitude training. I don't want to do the acclimation for that. So I bailed so I can go on our camping trip.
It's probably a good decision at this point.
Based on my experience, jumping into a skimo race at Copper Mountain in April, like showing up, no acclimation, no nothing, and being like, this will be fine after 500 yards. Death. Good
Dad's strength does not work with altitude.
Does not work at altitude. No.
That's exactly it. I didn't want to walk up every climb. So honestly that, and I just want to be at home for August. So you can see how I prioritize now.
Yeah. Well, we gotta plan a mountain biking camping trip. Maybe I can come up. We can meet in the middle. We'll bring
Bevan Doherty's in too. He's got the RV now. Well,
sweet. Right on. Right. I'll bring the cowboy cauldron. We'll
bring the cowboy cauldron.
Yeah, man.
I'll bring my mountain bike. We'll get out there. So I'll bring my very unique camping setup, which is just I took an old a paddleboard came in this big bag, and I was like, wait a minute, that's like kind of perfect size here. So my camping setup now is just this big bag with a sleeping bag and a sleeping mat in it, and a tarp over top, and I just throw the fly over top, and I'm all set. So
perfect.
It's those Bush League, gumbo, camping setup. I absolutely love it. So
that's awesome.
My little monitor's going. You got to talk to the Dink. So
yeah. Well, Simon, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
It's actually is a fun. Slowtwitch is an original. Dan Anfield was my first ever sponsor. Gave me a QR, gave me a Quintana Roo back in the day, and so anything to be reconnected with Slowtwitch. It's like a heart and soul community within our triathlon family. So thanks for having me, fellas. That was fun.
We appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us on the episode 3 of the Slowtwitch podcast. This will be coming off tomorrow. When's Thursday,
June 1st.
Yeah.
Giddy up.
And we'll see everybody later.
Thanks all.